Carbon neutrality is a long journey. It's not an end by itself. It's the means to achieve better life for people and the community. It's not a sacrifice, but it's a winning case for business.
Baku's streets are a regular fixture in the Formula One Grand Prix calendar. And on occasion it seems as if the motorists here think they're competing in it on a daily basis. Such are the speeds at which they bomb around the city. And traffic is a notorious pollutant. So it's a good subject for the delegates at the COP29 annual climate change conference taking place across the city. But it's what the traffic careers past, the office blocks and the buildings, that is most on the mind of executives such as Feng, who's here at the conference this year. He's chairman of the DeepRock Group, and since buildings cause an estimated third of a city's carbon emissions, he's a man on a mission to discover greener building solutions.
We're looking at real estate as a sort of life cycle. So the building, from the first point when it started to source materials to the stage where it started this construction process, and then all the way down to the operation cycle. So we look at the whole cycle and realize that actually it produced a carbon emission of 50% of the entire carbon emission of the society. So we were reflecting upon that and thinking, wait a minute, we've done a lot on the construction side. We've done a lot of engaging the supply chain and looking at how sustainability should be incorporated into our procurement and looking at sourcing of timber, steel, and then different things, looking at how they're sustainable. But we never really sit down and think very seriously through the whole life cycle, because usually when we build properties, we just transfer and someone bought it and we just sell it. But now it looks to us as a different scenario where we really should look at the operation of the building. So I think DeepRock was built with the vision of decarbonize the whole life cycle of built environment, and through that also engaging the community, looking at the carbon neutral community, how that can be achieved through the built environment retrofit, renewables, waste management, and even life cycle.
And you've certainly as a company come up with a number of initiatives to tackle that. So just give a few examples of the sort of thing you've done.
Obviously, we have to look at what type of energy the building is consuming. So increase the deployment of renewable energy, solar panels, and all sorts of other options in the communities as well. And if you find it interesting, along the coastline where our first pilot community is, we're creating something called wave energy generation. So a platform that's floating on the ocean water. And as the ocean waves creates a fluctuation, it produces energy that could be harnessed from that platform for the use. And
this is just off Shenzhen, in southern China.
Yeah, southern China. And it was right there floating on the ocean like a magic carpet. But what it does was actually remind people of their whole source of options in terms of source of natural energy we could use. So the energy side, renewables. But renewable itself can go very far, particularly if you want to create business models. And so we combine that technology with something we call microgrid, smart microgrid, because it needs to be combined with the energy storage and then with the data monitoring and management system to maximize and optimize the use of renewable energy locally in this campus and communities. Because even only then can the renewable supplier solution providers have a chance to actually make business profits from this, and then can sustain this investment and for this to be replicated and scale up. So just raise an example on the energy side. But if I may just raise two other things.
Sure.
One is the waste recycling, and particularly about food waste. 𝗿𝗲, since early days, we started to implement a community composting program. And what's happening in China is that the food waste contains a lot of salt and oil. So those are the things, if you compost and put that into fertilizer for soil, creates a problem for the soil itself. So instead, through the research and practice, we found something called magic insect called the black soldier fly. And that basically, in a very short cycle, it's a larva. It eats thousands of its body weight, and it has no particularly picky on salt and oil and something that it just eats, and becomes really useful source of fertilizers for the gardening.
By processing that as biomass, as it were.
Biomass, exactly. And when that cycle completes, and you can freeze that and use that as a protein source of animal feeds for chicken and the ducks, then we actually raise on our campus in the center of urban centers, and it's quite fun actually feed that with fish, even the pond. So that's quite interesting. So for the food waste that produced on the campuses, we process them all without putting them out into the landfill. And more importantly, we want to put everything around the needs and also the physical activities of the people living in there, so they can appreciate the positive change that's happening in their life and work. So in our building, we built fitness facilities like a rock climbing wall for people to climb up. We create an art center where students could come and see in a 3D immersive environment the changes happening in the environment. We put a lot of artworks there, something, photography of the melting icebergs and the glaciers in the high mountains. Community come together to enjoy that environment. I think that gives people better appreciation.
So it's interesting, it's not just environmental, it's cultural, it's educational as well, in terms of expanding what you're doing. And I should ask, what's been the end result of all this? You've obviously put in a lot of innovative changes, from a magic carpet on the sea to a magic fly for biomass.
Because of our interventions, all the renewables and building energy efficiency improvements, we reduced the carbon footprints by 93%. And remember, this is the building that was certified as LEED Platinum back in 2009 as the first one in China. So it's already high standard in terms of the performance, green performance. So that's how, the first metric is about the actual carbon reduction, which is important. But then the second set of indicators, I think really important, is the business case for the people and companies who invest their money and time and everything in this experiment with us. So for the solar panel producers and solutions operator, they work with us because the microgrid system we implement in the system, their financial return cycle reduced from 6 years to 5 years through 2 years of operation because of the continuous improvements in our system for the microgrid. So I see that a very positive change for the investors who wants to put in their money for this.
So there is optimism clearly based on what you're doing, and equally important, there is profitability. This isn't a massive sacrifice to do this.
Yes, I think we should avoid this feeling that by reaching that high moral standard of creating something good for humanity, we need to sacrifice. We need to just put our money out there and contribute. I think there's no shame of making this a really strong business case for people who wants to do this. And it's the only way, it's the only pathway when we talk about huge amount of commitments financially to make the carbon neutral targets happen. Now we're going into the government buildings, offices nearby, schools, by working with the government and business to replicate some piece and bits of what we do here in the nearby.
So the biosphere is expanding.
It's expanding. So it's no longer about one building. It's about creating this whole community using our methodology and using the way. And also we're looking at replicating this model in other cities in China as well.